Welcome back to WKIM. We keep it moving. Our next guest, I'm so excited, is Danielle Paschko. She is an author, holistic nutritionist, certified health coach, and yoga instructor. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree from the College of Natural Health and was certified as a health coach from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Paschko develops weight loss and detoxification programs as well as customized nutraceutical
Suitable.
products. Okay, just go back to pronounce it for me. For prestigious doctors throughout New York City. She also provides nutrition consulting for healthy menu development at established restaurants and children's schools. Her expertise in nutrition and wellness has been quoted in major media publications, including the New York Post, Fox News, USA Today. And she is the author of Breaking Your Fat Girl Habits and Smile at Your Challenges. She's taught and worked with clients at the Sports Club in LA, Reebok Sports Club New York, Equinox Fitness, Exhale Spa, and the Peninsula Spa, and is currently working with world renowned health expert Oz Garcia at his Upper West Side clinic in New York. Hello, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us how you got into the environment of nutrition. What happened to have you create this? Was this something you wanted to be when you grew up, or something changed in your life to create this opportunity?
I think there's always a story for people and how they move into their careers.
Mhm,
And for me, I was a little girl and had a very sick mom, and she had
mhm,
breast cancer. And since the time I was 8 years old, and she wasn't getting a lot of help the traditional route through medicine. So she started seeking out more alternative therapies like a macrobiotic diet, using homeopathic remedies. And she started working with different healers and doing a lot of mind body modalities. And she passed away when I was 13 years old, but she actually left all her books for me. And it was sort of interesting to grow up reading these types of things. And I felt like, as a little girl, like I want to be a healer. I don't want to see people get sick, and I want to be able to help them. And I think I just developed an interest in nutrition and natural medicine and health and wellness because of what she went through.
And so, in this journey, what were the first four things that were necessary for you to make certain you understood the journey that you were going to take?
The first four things that happened.
Mhm. Or more, whatever you think. Yes.
Um, well, I think that I just knew right off the bat when I was a child that I wanted to do something in this direction. And so the first thing, my first experiment was I actually studied with a shaman, and I was learning about different types of healing modalities through him. And then I became certified um, as a polarity therapist and a Reiki therapist, which is a type of energy healing. And then I ended up moving into nutrition, and then I started teaching yoga. So I think I just kept furthering my education in this field because I really wanted to learn as much as I possibly could and have the knowledge for when I worked with clients.
Mhm.
So it's just been an ongoing journey, just really having an understanding of all the different things that are out there that can help people.
So you had to do some investigation, right?
Yeah.
So so it was the experiment that got you to a place. But how was that journey? How did you even start? Because you've gone from one extreme to another, right? And how did you brought them all together? So now they're all in one house.
Right. So I really didn't know where I wanted to start. I just knew that I wanted to help people. So I guess healing was the first interest of mine, learning to do body work and hands-on healing. And then truthfully, what brought me into nutrition was I was doing that, and then I was teaching yoga, and then I actually ended up being in it sounds a little funny to say this, but I was in a marriage where the person I was with did not want me to have so much physical contact with my clients. So we thought it was better if I actually work in a way that I could use myself more intellectually rather than doing the hands-on type of work. So that's where I really started immersing myself in nutrition, and um, and I also developed nutraceutical products for doctors, and I learned a lot of different aspects of the nutritional world. So It just kept evolving over the years.
So this nutritional journey, so
Mhm.
now were you then looking at plants and fruits and what they came from, or the impact that some of these vegetables or fruits were doing? How were they changing with certain people's systems? How were they impacting? If did you let go of pork versus fish, or how did you balance those menus in order for people to go where they're to arrive to where they're supposed to go?
So the first part of my life, I started off as a vegan, and I was completely uh, I didn't have, no animal products at all. I was basically very conscious of everything I put into my body to a T. I was very extreme about it. And I actually wasn't getting the results that I was hoping for in terms of, sometimes you think that if you just eliminate meat and become a vegetarian, it's the healthiest way to go. And strangely, while I was doing that, I ended up developing thyroid cancer while I was a vegan, and I was working out 7 days a week and doing yoga. And it made me realize that nutrition is part of the journey, but there's also an emotional component and handling stress. And it wasn't just about the food that you're eating. And it changed the way that I worked with my clients, because I actually wrote a book about it. Called Smile at Your Challenges. And it says it takes more than just going gluten-free, drinking green juice, and practicing yoga to solve your problems. And I think people get very excited about all these type of fad diets. Like if I'm a vegan, or I'm going keto, or I'm going paleo, or everybody's body is different. So it's really, I like to look at blood work and really see what works with each person individually. I don't subscribe to any kind of diet plan. So I went
Mhm.
that route of being very strict and rigid, and sometimes things can still happen. So I like to make sure that I have a sense of people's health history and what they can tolerate and what's good for them personally. So it's evolved from that point. I'm no longer a vegan. I also became a lot more relaxed and less rigid in my eating style. And I've also become a lot more relaxed with the clients that I work with, because being so strict all the time isn't necessarily the healthiest thing for you.
Mhm, mhm. So, in looking at your diet and where you were trying to go, where you started and
Right.
how you've ended up, because now you said, I don't want to be a vegan. So, what was it about being a vegan that turned you off to go do something else?
Well, I think from being a vegan, for some people they can do really well with it, but for others, I think I was back at a time that soy milk was very popular, and rice milk, and we didn't know that a lot of carbs at that time. There wasn't a big low carb craze when I was doing all of this. So I was having lots of brown rice and lots of beans and lots of heavy carbohydrates and lots of juices. And my blood sugar was so dysregulated. I actually felt terrible.
Oh,
And I was probably in the worst shape of my life as a vegan, which is kind of ironic. So when I started changing my diet and went more towards a paleo diet, my
wait, what's a paleo diet?
so a paleo diet is a diet that it's a lot of healthy lean proteins, healthy fats. Um, you're really avoiding grains. You're not eating sugar, and it's pretty much it's a clean diet, but it's definitely not vegan. So it's an anti-inflammatory diet, which works very well with people, especially who have autoimmune disease. And I found that it was a very healing diet for me, and it restored a lot of energy. I ended up leaning out. My body never was in such good shape after I transformed from being a vegan to going more into a paleo
Hmm.
style type of diet. So that worked for me. I'm not saying it works for everybody.
But what was the difference between the two?
So being a vegan is it was very grain based, a lot of
Okay.
beans and lentils, and you don't have beans and grains and lentils when you're doing a paleo type of diet. You're eating more uh, fleshy proteins like chicken and fish and meat. and good healthy fats, but you're not really having a lot of the grains, and you're not really having you're not having the beans and lentils and those things.
Okay. So when I think of vegetarian, I think of broccoli and lettuce and, things like that, green beans and all the green stuff.
All of that's very healthy. Green is good for sure.
Okay. So
Um,
so
I,
so we
I
can do green.
Very green, yes. Green is very important. Lots of colorful fruits and vegetables are important. It's especially vegetarians who maybe are not getting enough protein in their diet, or they're overeating carbohydrates because they're not full enough, because they're not getting enough protein. Sometimes they end up overeating, and it can help them, it can cause them to have issues with their blood sugar. It could cause weight gain. People are shocked to hear that being a vegetarian can make many people gain weight, but I've
Hmm.
worked with clients and actually taken them off a vegetarian diet if they're trying to lose weight because they're eating too many carbs.
So when I think vegetarian, what's going to make me gain weight?
Eating a lot of the rice, too much
Oh,
rice,
okay.
too many beans and lentils. Beans and lentils are healthy for you, but you don't want to overeat them. And then there's a lot of soy proteins and fake proteins, like a lot of the faux meats that we hear about, like um, the Beyond Meats or the Impossible Burgers, or the type of foods that they're trying to be foods, but they're like faux foods. It's healthier to eat the real thing. So I'm all about real whole foods. And I think
Mhm.
eating a lot of plants is great, like you mentioned before, a lot of greens, but just eating real food. And that's what I've come to at this point for me. You know,
Right.
it's individual for each person. Some people really thrive on a vegetarian diet. It just wasn't what worked for myself.
And it has to work for you. It has to, because everybody's an individual and their bodies are different. And so,
Absolutely.
and all of these different, no matter what, I mean, they're grains, they're, food, they're coming from the earth or whatever, but they do impact you if you don't do it right.
Exactly. That's very true. So it's how you do it. And you could be a vegetarian and you could eat pizza with vegan cheese, and that's being a
Mhm.
vegetarian, but is that necessarily healthy? So you want to
Yeah,
just way.
all that flour. What does that flour do to you on that pizza big giant thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wheat, there's a lot of gluten. It's inflammatory, so it's definitely not good for you. And
Mhm.
yeah, there's really not a lot of benefit in that. So it just depends how you do it. Some people thrive being a vegetarian, but you have to really be skilled, and I'd say work with someone who can help you put together a diet if you're not sure how. That way, at least you're getting in all your nutrition, because you can be deficient in a lot of vitamins if you're doing a
Mhm.
vegetarian diet in an improper way.
Mhm. So processed juices and things. So like orange juice, you might get it has a little pulp in it or something like that, or cranberry. Is there something that has been changed? It's not the cranberry itself, but it's the juice. Can Should you really be drinking the juice from the bottle, or should you buy the cranberries and put them in a little doomajiggy, a food
Yeah,
processor?
it's completely different when you're having fresh juices that are made naturally the day of, or that, rather than having something that's been sitting in your refrigerator for a couple of days. It's completely different, and you want to be able to have the pulp if you can, because it has fiber and it slows down the acceleration of your blood sugar, and you don't want to have these high glucose levels from drinking all these sugary um, types of juices. Are definitely not great. Green juices are a different story because they're less glycemic and they're not going to raise your blood sugar in the same way. But fruit juices, I'd say keep to them in moderation.
Oh, in moderation. So
Yes,
you mean I can't just drink a couple bottles a day of orange juice out of the bottle, right?
I wouldn't. No, 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 unless you can metabolize sugar really well. But for most people, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, I think that there's more than me just doing my little dance that I usually do. I need to do that probably a couple of hours, right? So in looking down the road and the work that you're doing and the exercises that you're giving out, give us some ideas of what, life has changed. We're back out. COVID is kind of doing its thing over there in the corner, and we want to go out. We want to do things. We've been sitting around and eating God knows what, right?
Yeah.
Wow. How do we move forward in this new era?
Well, hopefully it's given people more perspective on life and how precious it is, and really I see as an opportunity to learn to take care of yourself, because look, a lot of people really, had major tragedy through this time in life, and it also makes you question, your own health, your own mortality. So I think that people should learn to try to be a little bit healthier and more mindful. And also, I think it gave people an opportunity to be a little bit more creative, being at home, really deciding what they want to do with their professional life and their careers. And it gave us a lot of time for contemplation. So there was a lot of bad that came out of COVID, but there was also some good things. So I think going forward, I'm sorry, going back to your question, you were asking how people should move forward coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
I think this should be a reset, and they
Mm.
should really start to think about how they want to live their life, how they can take care of their health to be the best that they possibly can. And if there's something that they wanted to do in terms of professionally that they were excited about, they could have used that time, or now people have the opportunity to work remotely and take on other projects. So I think you should really see this as a time to reinvent yourself. It's a reset, and we should all be happy that we're alive and we made it through this, and just start over in a way that's positive.
So we can start by changing our diet,
Changing a diet is definitely a good way to start, for sure.
right? That I need to really rethink all of those chocolate chip cookies.
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, a lot of people were sitting home, and it was just very easy to go and keep going back to the refrigerator because,
Or the
when
freezer where the chocolate ice cream is on the third
exactly if
shelf.
ice cream is your thing. Yeah. Yeah. Has definitely been an issue. A lot of people talk about, like in college, the freshman 15, it's like the COVID 20 I've been hearing about, or people gaining a lot of weight. So now it's time to really try to get with some kind of routine that is a lot
Mhm.
healthier. If you want to do that on your own, or if you want to do it under the care of a professional who can actually help you to get there, but just figure out what your goals are, and to do that.
And so, in looking at goals, should the goals be the best way to be healthy, the best way to have fun with your friends, so you're not by yourself trying to do sit ups in the corner of the living room, right?
Well, I
Or,
think yeah, I mean, COVID in many ways got us so used to connecting to people through Zoom. We're like so zoomed out, and through social media. And I think if you can, it's a good time to go and re-enter the world and cultivate friendships, because your mental health is as important as your physical health. It affects your physical health. So while I advocate diet and nutrition for a living, I always say that, depression will make you sicker than a little bit of, sugar and gluten. It's like
mm,
you really need to get yourself in a good state. So friendships are especially important, and having those relationships, but also taking care of yourself and getting, rather than sitting home and doing exercises, get outside. Now is a great time to be able I mean, the weather's beautiful right now. And I think if you can do things and that bring you out of the house and around people, I think that's really good.
and I was wondering too, in looking at this whole business of COVID and people having been sequestered for such a long period of time. Have you seen studies, the impact that COVID had on people doing the reentry into life?
I mean, I'm looking up studies on COVID every day, just seeing what the outcomes are, more or less the health outcomes of what's happening now, especially pertaining to long COVID, but also the mental effects of what has been happening. And for children, I think it's really been the worst, up to all the way up to college age. Not having those social interactions has really been pretty detrimental to their mental health. And then also, you think about people who are elderly and they're home by themselves and they don't have a lot of friends, and it has to be really traumatizing. So I'm glad we're through the worst of it, but there's still a population that has to be somewhat sensitive because of their susceptibility to still having the infection and having long-term effects. So it's, for most people, they're okay to reemerge into the world without any caution. But I think some people still need to be careful. And unfortunately, this is endemic. COVID seems like it's always going to be around. So I just hope that the variants become lighter and lighter and people just don't react as badly.
Mhm. So, in looking at all of the challenges that we've had and moving forward, so now we've got to lighten the emotional and mental load of reemerging or into society again. Opening up the door to go to the restaurant and, oh my goodness, I think I might eat something out. Do we need to really think about going into restaurants and things like that might be impactful because you can't wash the food down, you don't know what people have done? Is that a worry, or is it once you cook it, it's really okay?
No, it still is a worry for a certain population. I would
Okay.
say most people are pretty okay, but there are people who are sensitive. I'm actually one of them. I typically don't eat inside restaurants still at this point. I try to do as much outdoor. I don't go to mega events. I haven't been to any. I love concerts. I haven't been to any concerts. I haven't been to basketball games, which I love. And it's because I have an underlying condition. So I have to make sure that I take care of myself. And there are those people that really have to make sure they're conscious, because long COVID is a thing. And that's kind of the new pandemic, right? So like most people who get COVID now, there are those people who, God forbid, they're in the hospital or they have a really bad case. But most people fare pretty okay, and it's more like a cold or a flu. But that's not really the thing that people have to be concerned about. It's more of the repercussions of having long COVID, which is there are still 20 million people in the United States who have this. So it's something to be concerned about. If you've already had COVID and you haven't had any issues and it hasn't affected you, most likely you're going to be fine. But if you've had it and it has impacted you and your symptoms have been lingering for months or even years at this point, then I would still say you want to be careful.
Hmm. And so, in doing so, we have a couple of friends of mine they call it double masking, right? And making certain that the filters are in, and actually going through and taking the filters from the actual furnace, brand new ones, and cutting them to fit into the little cloth containers. Is that extreme, or
You
just?
know, I've heard such mixed things about masks. I mean, people are still getting COVID wearing a mask. I'm not against masking. I think that for some people, wearing an N95 or a filter mask like you're talking about can be helpful. I don't think you could walk around super paranoid that you can't live your life. You have to live. But I mean, I think if you are one of those people, just maybe try to keep your activities to being outdoors where you're more comfortable and you can still be around people and there's some airflow, and being in more ventilated places. Maybe wear a mask when you're in close contact, or especially if you're in your office and you're having a meeting and you're uncomfortable. But I don't think you have to drive yourself crazy. I don't think the whole world has to be crazy about it. It's just for a certain population of people.
So I'm going to circle back to the yoga and the exercise and all of that. Do
Yeah.
you have a company that's in a building? You have a roof that people go to, or is this something that you do individually with people, or how does
So,
that work?
I still have some individual yoga clients. That's not my main work. I work as a nutritionist in a clinic on the Upper West Side. So I work in an integrative medical clinic, and that's pretty much where I practice. So I see the clients in the clinic, and I also have my own clients.
Okay. All right. And so through this process, you've learned a lot in making this change in your life, the diets and the movement, and getting yourself a holistic approach to being the best you can be, right?
Yes, I hope so.
What would be 4 things that you would tell our audience to consider And knowing that you've tried these different experiences, and how do we get a beginner? So Marcia has eaten herself out of every kind of container of chocolate or ice cream or cookies or whatever. And she's got to get control of this because she's getting older and she can't play with all that sugar and the impact that the sugar is going to have on her body. How do we do that? And I'm in Baltimore and you're in New York. How do I work with you?
Well, people can always work remotely. I mean, that's the great, that's one thing that came out of COVID is a lot of telehealth. So
Okay.
you can definitely do a remote session with somebody just to get a better handle on how to manage these cravings or to change your habits. It's sometimes hard to do it on your own and you need a little bit of hand holding. So if you feel like, gosh, I really want to do that, but I can't, I'd say try to even do one session with a professional who can be able to better guide you and give you some alternatives. So to say to you, well, instead of eating cookies at night, maybe you're better off eating some Greek yogurt with berries, as an exchange. I'm making this up right now. I don't know what.
Yeah, no, but this is good. You're going well. It sounds good.
Right. So you can't tell people just to cut things out of their diet because it's never going to necessarily work. No one wants to feel deprived.
That
So
would be me.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Food is joy for a lot of people and you want to be able to do something that's sustainable. So you just have to figure out substitutions. Or if you want to have a cookie, all right, have a cookie, pick a Saturday and say that's my day, I'm going to have my cookies. You don't have to be crazy about it, but just be cautious that if you have it all the time, it's going to be an issue.
Hmm. And, I think also that when we go through this kind of pandemic and we're on the other side, one of the fears is getting back to normal, getting back to a period where you weren't so afraid, and but your body you were able to work with your body and your mind and your spirit, trying to change all that. And now I've been sequestered and I'm over here and I'm frightened, but I need to bloom. I need to come back out and get back into the world from a mental and emotional uh, standpoint. I know I've been impacted being in the house because I was the same person that was out in the street every single day, all day, off going somewhere. But
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm slowly doing it. But that's been a huge transition to make that move.
It is a transition. If you can, it helps sometimes to get a friend to be able to inspire you to go do things and they push you a little bit, you push them and kind of have that system where you help each other. Also, there's things like meetups or just trying to find activities that get you a little bit out of your comfort zone because it is important, and we do get stuck in our ways. So just even if you start out by taking a short walk and getting used to doing that and just slowly building on that and saying, okay, that wasn't so bad. I got my feet wet. I was outside for 10 minutes today. And tomorrow I'm going to make it longer. And then maybe I'm going to go to a store and I'm going to go shopping. And slowly it becomes sort of a routine for you. And it's not so frightening anymore.
Hmm. Getting out of the comfort zone of going ahead and saying, okay, like the doors need to throw them open and run, right? But there's a lot. This has been a long period of time
Yeah.
for not only adults but for young people. What do we tell these young people who've been sequestered? And how that's huge, and how that works within a household where there are several people in that household and you're not leaving, but now the doors are already opening everywhere else. How do you make that transition with young people as
Well, for
well?
young people, like you're talking about children,
Hmm.
maybe setting up play dates for them, taking them out yourselves. I mean, parents lead by example. So the child is going to do what the parent's showing them. So it's kind of the parent's responsibility to start making these changes on their own. And I think kids are, they're playing video games and they're stuck in the computer. And when we were kids, we were outside and, people played handball and basketball and they were, running around, and that was, and your parents would call you out the window when it was getting dark and scream that you have to come in for dinner. That was life. These days, kids do everything indoors. So I think if the parents start taking them to the park or making these play dates outside and getting them used to doing that, I think that's really healthy.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. And
yeah.
I mean, it's huge for me, just walking and, making certain that I've got the mask on, walking past the people, and even though you're outside, when I first made that move, it was like an escape. I'd been in an igloo or something, and now I'm out in the grass.
Are you able to go out now and feel a little more comfortable? Okay, good.
I do. But it was a journey getting to this point. And I just started, going out the back door, and some days I'm going one way, some days I'm going the other, but I'm getting the movement, I'm getting the exercise, I'm getting accustomed to being safe. Right.
That's part of it, feeling safe. You feel very vulnerable, and getting to the place of feeling safe again. I think all of us have a little bit of that after this experience.
And it was so crazy because there were all these different stories coming at you, right?
Yeah.
So that was what I thought was really crazy, trying to make that adjustment from a person I'm always outside. I'm an outdoors person. So that was really difficult for me to make that move. I knew I needed to, because I couldn't stand being in the house anymore. Because I was old.
Yeah, I couldn't stand it. I was in a studio apartment at the time, and I probably spent all my days outside. I mean, it was crazy in New York City. The streets were just barren, and you never see that. And I was like walking all over town. I just was going so stir crazy. Yeah.
I did the same thing. So here in Baltimore, if you go all the way south down the street, this main boulevard, right? And you hit the inner harbor.
Mm-hmm.
So you make this long trek, and like for weeks, there was nobody out.
Right. It's so eerie.
It was eerie. And it's like in the middle of the day, the afternoon, the early morning, the evening, it was just nobody was doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you look at that. And so the impact of the mental health, I always worried about, those that were still sequestered. And, how do all of the businesses, you already have small businesses, and how many of them were going under because they couldn't hold on, because they couldn't get people to come. How do we deal with the recovery local and nationally?
The recovery in terms of
how we make the transition to be back to something similar to what we used to do with our lives.
Well, I think the social aspect is important to get back to doing that. I think we've seen that a lot of businesses are doing okay having people work remotely, and we don't necessarily need to be in the office all the time, except for maybe the social aspect, but we're able to do so much being away from that. But I think we have to make a conscious effort to connect with our friends again and have some kind of community. I think community is really important for our health. So it's something that we need to work on. And if we can't get through it ourselves, maybe even talk to a therapist or mental health counselor who can make some suggestions and really help us to get through that. Because community is one of the pillars of just being healthy and having a long life and being happy. So I think it's just super important.
So when's the new book coming out?
So I've done 2 books. I would like to do a book eventually on chronic illness. It's not together yet.
Okay.
Some drafting right now, but I definitely would like to do that because I'm seeing a lot of chronic conditions come out of this COVID mess. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, and helping people and giving them tips to learn how to deal with the fallout from what's happened to their health from having COVID. And so that's really what I would like to address in the next.
So I would like to put the name of the books that you have in the chat.
Okay. Do you want me to tell them to you?
Yeah, and I'll type them right in.
So the first one is called Smile at Your Challenges.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And the second one is called Breaking Your Fat Girl Habits.
Mm. All right, so I'm going to copy these and put them in the newsletter.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be more than happy to do that. So smile at your challenges and breaking your fat girl habits, right?
That's it. Yes.
Okay. And so we've got a couple more minutes. I don't know, what are 3 things that you'd like to tell our audience and how they should be functioning and getting this weight off of us and just holding our heads high and gearing up to go ahead and change the world?
Well, for one thing, as much as I've always focused on weight loss, since the onset of COVID and people really having trouble with their health, I focus more on immune health at this point and
Mhm.
getting them to just when you have overall good health and good habits, weight loss is just going to be a fall up of doing that. So if I could just mention 3 things that I think are really important, I think an anti-inflammatory diet helps everyone with any kind of condition, whether you're dealing with a chronic illness or you're dealing with an issue with you're borderline diabetic or you just want to lose weight. Anti-inflammatory diet is a diet that is, doesn't have any processed foods. You're avoiding inflammatory triggers like anything fried, wheat, gluten, dairy, sugar, too much alcohol, and also like, and even like too much coffee that can be stimulating, and really replacing foods like having good healthy proteins like fatty fish, like wild fish, having grass-fed and organic meats if you do choose to eat meat, a lot of green leafy vegetables, and also a multitude of colorful vegetables, and a lot of green juices, and really keeping down the inflammation is going to keep your immune system in a good place to prevent getting sick. And that also can help with weight loss. So that's one. The other thing that I think is really awesome is mushrooms.
Oh.
And there's so many types of mushrooms out there, but there are mushrooms that are specifically good for immune health and also just like warding off, forget about even COVID, but we have these like flus and superbugs going around. And there's one called AHCC, and that comes from shiitake mushrooms.
Mm.
And it also helps with the 3 things that I always talk about with my clients, which is it helps to modulate the immune system, which means to improve your overall immune health. It helps to decrease inflammation, which is what I was talking about before, because inflammation is related to almost all illnesses. And it's antiviral. And why we see people getting sick and having long COVID is because a lot of times people had childhood viruses that they forgot about. Let's say they had Epstein-Barr, which is like the monovirus, or possibly like a herpes virus, or maybe something called the cytomegalovirus. They may have had as children. When you have COVID, for certain people, it like sets off a match in your body, and it recognizes it kind of ignites all the old viruses that you have. So someone says, well, I don't know why I feel so sick after COVID. I was so healthy. It's because of the reactivated viruses. So that's why I love this AHCC so much, because it helps with all these things. So people can just go to their website, ahcc.net, and just look at studies.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I think is really good is yoga, because we're talking about anxiety here, and just really bringing down our stress levels. And it's so good because there's so many types. There's very gentle yoga, which is just good for breathing, and it's good for the nervous system, and it's really restorative. Or there's different types of yoga, which I used to teach. One is called Ashtanga yoga and Vinyasa, which is very strengthening. I don't know if you're familiar.
No, I'm not a yoga person, but I'm interested. So I'm going to try some of this.
And
So
you can get in
carry on.
you can get an amazing shape by doing these types of yoga. So you're getting the benefit of all the breathing and all the, the benefits that it brings all the oxygen to the brain, and it helps the circulation, but it really tones you. So I think yoga is terrific. And I think it just helps everyone get into a calmer mindset, and maybe it will give them the confidence to be more social if they become calmer. So those are 3 things that I would suggest.
I love it. And something, since I've been sequestered, have this light little film over my eye. What should I be eating? Is that carrots?
Oh, you have a film over your eye right now?
Yeah, yeah. Just
Hmm,
recently noticed it.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, carrots can be good for eye health, but I mean, have you gone to
Oh,
even?
no, I'm going to be going to the doctor in the next couple of weeks. I just didn't know if there was something that you had up your sleeve about fruits or vegetables that may change my life.
I mean, the only, sometimes I would say if someone, let's say if they're having like eye floaters, are you experiencing any of that, or just?
No, just seems like it's a little cloud,
Hmm.
light cloud.
It's hard to know. Sometimes when people have eye issues, it has to do sometimes with their blood sugar,
Ah.
but that might not necessarily be your issue. So I don't want to.
No, no, no. I'm going to an eye doctor, an ophthalmologist to
Okay.
make certain that I'm okay. But I didn't know if there was something that you might know off the top of your head that might be fruit or vegetable-y that I could eat or do or something. But I just noticed it a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I hope that, once you find out what it is, maybe you can contact me after and I can give you a suggestion, but I hope that starts to resolve.
Well, we're going to go to the doctor in the next couple of weeks, so that's going to happen.
Okay.
And but I was just thinking, oh well, maybe we could have something I could just put into the thing and drink it. But cool.
There's also, what I do happen to like, there's colloidal silver eye drops. Um, Colloidal silver is it can be used like an antiseptic. You can take it orally, but there's also special ones for the eyes and ears.
Hmm.
And if you tend to get dry eyes or sometimes a film over your eyes, that actually can work well. And you can get that in a health food store or even buy on Amazon. So you may want to look into that.
Okay. Well, I will. I am going to keep the appointment though. So
Good. Yeah. It's always best to go to your doctor with any questions.
yeah, I just thought there might be some fruits or vegetables that I could grind up or something and
I mean,
do something different.
definitely fruits and vegetables that are high in antioxidants. Like if you think about like organic berries and like fruits and vegetables and things like that are always going to improve overall health and potentially eye health. But you just need to see what you have exactly going on.
Well, I thought I could get some little free recommendations for you on the air. Right?
Maybe the eye drops might help you for now.
Okay. All right. So we got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that you would, in closing, like to share with the audience and how they can reach you and what you want them to do? Or
Well, I mean, I would like everybody, after listening to this, if hopefully they can feel a little bit inspired to take some charge of their life and really think about how they can start to better themselves, especially from a health perspective, or maybe take a risk and contact a friend and decide to go out and make a plan to do something outdoors, get into nature, especially, that, like we were saying, it's good weather outside, and really get out of your comfort zone if you can. So that's something I like to see everybody do, because I'd like to see everyone in a better, happier place physically and mentally. And if anyone has any questions and they'd like to reach me, they can always go to paschkowellness.com, which is my website.
okay. Wellness. Yes, you can spell.com. All right. Very good. Thank you so much, Danielle. We really appreciate you. Feel free to come back if something new happens and you want to share with us or
Great.
give us some any updates. We'd love to have you.
Terrific. Thank you.
This has been a lot of fun.
Okay. Take care. Have a great night.
You do the same. Danielle Paschko, holistic nutritionist who has lots of information on the top of her head. So we've got to stay in touch with her, coming out of Manhattan. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.